Hey, what's up, people? Morning. It is Tuesday, the 19th. I tried to get this camera up and working, but for whatever reason, I didn't want to. So now you just have this little logo in the left-hand side. We're still doing our Black Friday. Naturally, we started earlier on it. 60% off at TRADEPRO Academy, and tomorrow we're going to be doing a member side breakdown of all of our A+ setup so we can get a very concrete understanding of what's going on there. So I wasn't active in the markets yesterday, so I had some long swings that were going, did pretty well, but waking up, looking at this thing, markets are shifting to the downside. Big shifts in AI in terms of news, and really big shifts in this market, it seems. So the market had a huge pull down to the downside on the overnight session, dropping very significantly back into inside of some key distributions and very, very deep into those distributions. So the balance is playing out for that downside swing, and there are areas where I will look for the potential bounce, right? The potential quote-unquote fade bottoming in this market, but right now we're in a position to continuously sell rallies. A very strong downside momentum, which I'm going to talk about in just a bit. Let's just go over some of this news in terms of AI. So AI models are only as good as the data that powers them. So that sparked somewhat of a content rush over the past year as tech companies look to avoid copyright infringements by acquiring material from online publishers. So high quality content is key here, and with better and more valuable data are available to command those higher price tags. So in the early innings of the AI revolution, firms band together to stave off any threats to their bottom line. Hollywood went on strike and over fear that the industry might lose or share revenue with machines, while news and media firms started talks to establish a united front against big tech over content scraping. This hasn't stopped the transformation of the media sector, but what companies did realize is that they could also obtain a lucrative revenue stream in the new era of monetization, while others worried about what it will mean for their subscription-based models. So meanwhile, some tech giants that wield tremendous power over distribution and visibility are linked to AI content deals with big and small outlets alike. So have you recently noticed more Reddit results when conducting searches on Google? A $60 million deal with the publisher is behind that one. Another seismic shift in terms of content agreements have also been reached, such as OpenAI's $250 million deal with News Corp that gave it access to the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and Market Watch. Others are smaller in size, like AI's or OpenAI's $16 million deal with Investopedia owner Dash Meredith, and reports suggest that even smaller publishers are even being offered less in the range of $1 to $5 million a year. So there are still many unanswered questions about who will own or be responsible for AI generated content. It is the company that owns. Is it the company that owns the algorithm, the media outlets whose data help produce the article, the reader or the subscriber who enter the query, the public domain, right? New legal frameworks will have to be hashed out in the industry with notable past events like ethical revolt at OpenAI and a series of lawsuits filed by the New York Times. So we're still seeing progress, right? Pretty big progress in terms of AI and what's going on. So I think that market cap isn't necessarily tapped, and it's going to be very interesting going forward. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that still. But on a day-to-day basis, what we're seeing right now is a huge shift to the downside here in these equities on both the NASDAQ and the S&P. Now, the NASDAQ and the S&P, they kind of one-touch bounced off of some of these areas, but if I'm looking at the SPOOs this morning before we open up our live room, we were trying to climb higher yesterday, right? Over the last few sessions, if we don't include this overnight for just a second, if we don't include this overnight, we had a decent little attempted grind higher, but the close on yesterday's session wasn't anything astronomical for the buy side, which of course, right, on this overnight session was easily able to trigger this downside momentum move, which allowed for prices to drop back into this larger auction. So 59, 10-ish, 15 area on the S&P. Once we started moving back under that, I think it was kind of over for these longs. And right now, it's a very skeptical game for this long side. Now, naturally, we do have this midpoint area around this 58 to 80 region. I think that if we can climb back above that, there is some very small hope for these buyers to come back alive. But I see it as an opportunity from these like high 50s, mainly the 58.30 if we trade that area today to find some kind of turning point where the buy side looks a little more lucrative. If you want to look at this from the buyer's perspective and say, okay, well, I only want to be a buyer where prices are strong to the buy side, you buy above that 50, 59, 50, and if we trade up there. Right now, selling rallies into these blocks of heavier volume over here into this like mid 80 area on the S&P is most likely what's going to try to hold the overall momentum that's moving to the downside in this market. Otherwise, right now we had a one-touch bounce off of two important areas on the S&P and the NASDAQ. Just a single shot, pulls back, immediately starts bidding, which for me very annoying because if you guys saw my update on Sunday, right, the analysis, the live analysis we did on Sunday, that you would know around that 370 area on the NASDAQ, that is where I was looking to start buying and flipping this thing. And we don't really trade down there. You can see it's a one-touch bounce off of about 380, and we move up 100 points, right, immediately. So, unfortunately, I didn't take that, but NASDAQ under this 520 as well is more so on the bear side, right? You're leaning towards the bearish momentum of what's going on. As we saw overnight, a very, very big seismic shift in the downside momentum movement. So a big factor to consider. We're still on the downside. Be very careful trying to buy these dips. We had a failed move higher yesterday and on the overnight, so this can catch a lot of people off guard. So let's open up our live trading room today. We'll see what we got cooking, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.